probably the only thing that I'm very OCD at.
I cannot tell you how much I love that.
I tend to have it 5 hours before I start playing.
Wow.
I just feel amazing having get out of it.
From going into that recovery mode, that energy restoration mode, what are some of the habits and behaviors that you've brought into your lifestyle deliberately?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the only thing that I'm very OCD at. I honestly, there are bits of my day that I won't be able to almost look at myself and say I've given myself the best chance to perform at the weekend if I don't do.
Yeah.
So I have an ice bath at home. So I'm a big ice bather. I tend to try and do it in the evenings, but if I feel really beaten up, I'll do morning and night before training.
And is that because lots of people do ice baths for different reasons. Some do it for sort of cognitive, grit development. Yeah. Others do it for musculoskeletal reduction, inflammation. Some people do it for sleep. What's the big benefit you feel from it?
I'd say more musculoskeletal. Mentally, I could do without sitting in the pain of 3 degrees. I've got it at 3 degrees at the moment, which
is very aggressive.
Bonkers. I just feel amazing having get out of it. Before every game I play, I always have one. I have one. I tend to have it 5 hours before I start playing.
Wow.
And it gives me the best chance, I think, of flushing that last bit of stuff that you don't want out of your legs, that last bit of whether that's DOMS or just mental soreness or inflammation. Because that's really what it's like in the season now. It's like trying to regulate inflammation, minimize, so that you're in the best position to play. So that's one thing I certainly do. I give myself 24 hours rest period after a game, but then I'll always sauna 3 times in that week.
Wow.
Never 24 hours before the game.
Yeah.
Massive sauna fan.
And is that a traditional sauna? Or
that's a traditional sauna.
Okay. And how long would you do in there?
I would do, so I like to flit in between ice and sauna. So I'd maybe do 15 minutes in the sauna, 4 in the ice, 15, 4, then end it there. So that's, I'm trying to do math now, 38 minutes of recovery taken care of in a short space, which I think's amazing.
And do you feel, because of course, if you measure, if you've got your Whoop or a heart rate device on, you'll see that elevate during the sauna.
Yes.
But it's a very restorative form of low-level stress.
Yeah, and it is. I think there's, I'm not going to quite study, but I think there's stuff around your cardiovascular capabilities around saunas and just general, for me, mental well-being. It's a really nice time for me to just completely switch off, and I'm not watching a screen because you can't.
Yes.
I'm sitting there with my own thoughts. It actually gives me a bit of time to think about my to-do list for the week. I always find that's quite helpful. So that's another staple of mine.
Love that.
And then the other 2 bits, I guess, are I try and use a cryo chamber once a week.
Okay.
Usually on my day off.
Is there one at the club?
There's not one at the club, but I use a clinic in Kensington called the Body Lab.
Yep.
Would definitely recommend anyone who would like to use. That's probably the best I've seen. And that also has a hyperbaric. The hyperbaric as a rugby player is quite important for kind of brain recovery. There's strict science between hyperbaric and recovery from subconcussions and normal concussions, as it were. So that's another big thing that I try and get in once every couple of weeks. Spend an hour in there. So those are probably the 4 staple physical things that I do. And again, it's all about combining mental, physical, emotional well-being, but again, inflammation being the main target of that.
I love that, and there'll be a lot of people who don't know what hyperbaric is. So it's you're breathing 100% oxygen in a highly pressurized chamber.
Yeah,
and it's a lot of data leaning towards brain injury recovery.
Yes,
and were you guided to that through club protocols, or is that on your own research?
Again, it's something that I've been lucky enough to play with people that do no recovery and play amazingly. I've been lucky enough to people that have got to a point where they won't be able to play if they haven't stretched or done a certain thing for 2-3 hours before a game. Yeah. So I've kind of fruit picked bits that I think I'd be able to do, because at the end of the day, you could do 24 hours of recovery, if you wanted to. There's loads of different forms, but for me, I found something that works. I found a bit of a routine, and those are the 4 things that I really feel like. 1, I've got data to back it up that it works. I've got my own kind of feeling, placebo effect, as it were, that I feel like I'm getting better. Yeah. And then lastly, I can do it. I think that's half the battle, isn't it? we'd all love to have a cryo chamber in our garden, but that's not possible. But
Yes.
I'm lucky enough to have access to something that works. So yeah, those are the 4 things that I find I can access as much as anything.
Your great-grandparents got something from drinking water that you probably don't. Over the last century, we've made water safer to drink, on the whole, but something has been lost in the process. Natural water sources once provided essential minerals that our bodies evolved with over thousands of years. Today's water, even premium bottled at source water, contains 78% fewer minerals than it did just a century ago. In fact, you'd have to drink 1.5 bathtubs to replenish the minerals that you lose in a litre of sweat. So if you think your water is hydrating you optimally, think again. Pure Sport, a company that I personally trust and use, solves this problem for high performers through their Ultra Electrolytes, a science-backed ratio of electrolytes in one single sachet. Optimize your hydration and leave the bath for bathing. Use our exclusive discount code EE10 at www.puresport.co for 10% off. Love it. So that's that physical recovery piece.
Yeah.
From the emotional recovery, where does that tie in?
So I've got 2 big routine things. I have someone that I speak to. I have a performance coach that I speak to who is completely not involved in rugby in any way, shape or form, works with a number of different sports and business people that talk a lot about feeling, talk a lot about consistency, talk a lot about mental preparation.
Yes.
Again, it's something that I didn't tap into, and there's been a strict correlation between my kind of uptick in performance and mental preparation. It's something I take very seriously. And the other bit is I journal. I diary most days around how I feel, what I've done in the day, what I've done outside of rugby, and what I've also done recovery-wise. So, those 2 things are big, like cornerstones for me, being able to park what's happened before and be able to attack what's next.
I cannot tell you how much I love that. In terms of what value both those tools have. We know for most, whatever profession someone's in, the ability to share those thoughts, rationalize them, challenge them, and that journaling is a free expression of that feeling, is a really robust technique. Is that commonplace in the changing room, or I wouldn't have thought so yet?
I couldn't speak on behalf of everyone. I know people that use performance coaches. I know people that just journal. I know people that do neither. I don't think it would be the norm.
No.
There is provision there if you want it, but I think, again, I don't want to speak on people's behalf, but do you think there's a macho kind of thing? Yeah. Journaling is seen maybe, I don't know, something a bit not necessarily falling in line with the rugby player's routine, but it's something that I've found works. I tend to be quite a harsh critic on myself in terms of if the team lose, I'm thinking about what I've done poorly rather than what I've done well. So it allows me to put both sides of that down. It allows me to put context behind certain things. So, for example, like if I've had a poor game and I know that I've got a lot going on off the pitch, or I'm a bit ill, I can write that down, and all of a sudden I'm like, that's completely normal. I can feel better about maybe coming up short in a performance that I really wanted to perform well in. So, yeah, it's just allowed me to be a little bit more kinder to myself as much as anything, I guess.
And are those sort of evening rituals, is that fairly established with assuming it's not a game day and you've had a late match?
Yeah. So very much so. So we're talking about what I do before bed. I don't eat late. I eat very early. I try to eat around 6:30.
Okay.
Try and stay away from red meat. I love steak. It's a real issue. And the only time I have red meat is the night before a game. It's a pre-ritual of mine. I always have spaghetti bolognese.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's my only time. But I think I love steak. I love fish. I've loved like the process of cooking. So it's all about trying to unwind from that. So 6:30 I'll eat. Gives myself the best time to, like you say, digest that. I'm blue light blocking glasses from about 2 hours before bed. And I tend to try to get into bed for about 9:30.
Okay.
Having done all, other bits and bobs. So I get into bed 9:30, try and read for half an hour, having taken those supplements. And honestly, by 15 minutes into reading, I'm struggling to keep my eyes open.
Yes.
That's a good sign that I'm pretty much ready for bed.